Because of you, we lost everything. Our kids are in public school.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know I don't need to remind you everything we just heard was privileged.
Hey everyone, the Kettlemans are back, and though Cliff Main was reminding Aaron that everything they discussed is confidential, I couldn't resist pointing out the double entendre of privilege in terms of Betsy Kettleman's utter sense of entitlement. But they better watch out because Kim is wielding a pretty big stick in this episode. If you haven't seen my two-part breakdown of episode 1, Wine and Roses, I'll put the link up here somewhere, and I'll also drop a link down in the discussion comments, whatever it's called. There was just so much to cover. I felt it best to break these episodes down individually. So let's
just parachute down from cloud cuckoo land.
For this breakdown of season 6, episode 2, Carrot and Stick, which alternatively could have been titled Sheep and Wolves or Proof and Discovery. If I had to sum up this episode in just a few words, I'd say that it is a quest for truth or prueba. So the Kettlemans are seeking to prove that Howard is a cocaine addict and therefore gave Craig poor representation and ergo he should be exonerated.
Don't we need some kind of proof?
All the dirty laundry comes out in Discovery.
Wine and Roses ends with this conversation between Don Hector and Lalo.
¿Prueba? ¿Prueba es lo que quiere decir?
So Lalo is looking for proof that Gus sent the assassins, and while Lalo is absent from this episode, the twins, Marco and Lionel, are in it on behalf of the Salamanca quest to find truth.
Vivo.
Gus is seeking further proof that Lalo really is dead.
It all checks out. Dental records, too. This is everything?
Bolsa is trying to figure out who Nacho was working for. And Nacho is seeking out confirmation that he has been set up. There may be one other character collecting proof, and though I have no real concrete evidence to support this theory, I have a pretty good hunch that I will discuss at the end of this breakdown. So let's jump right into Carrot and Stick, and let's begin by looking at the carrots. Kim and Jimmy aren't the only characters dangling carrots and wielding sticks in this episode. Mike pays a visit to Joe and Amber at Nacho's house. He tells them that Nacho won't be returning. He sends his regrets, and then he advises them to pack their things and go.
You're going to take this. Get on a bus.
He offers them a carrot at first in the form of cash, and when they hesitate, he threatens with a stick.
This goes back in my pocket in 5 seconds. You won't like what happens next.
Wisely, Joe and Amber take the carrot. Mike then searches the house, and once they open the safe, he pockets Nacho's father, Manuel's ID, and then removes all of the other contents. Victor and Gus's guys then move in an identical safe, and Mike replaces all of Nacho's money, his fake ID, and with a heavy sigh, one additional item. We later learn that it is a statement from the Bank of Peru, and that Gus is planting that as evidence that Nacho was hired by a gang. And at the bottom of the letter, we see the phone number to the motel Ocotillo where Nacho is holed up. I'm assuming he does this in hopes that it would satisfy Bolsa and that the cartel would go and assassinate Nacho, no questions asked. So Gus didn't seem to anticipate that the cartel would want to take Nacho alive to get the truth out of him, that Gus is the one who hired the assassins. That Gus hadn't planned for the contingencies that Lalo would survive or that the cartel would want to take Nacho alive is somewhat surprising, right? Because Gus is usually so careful, but like Jimmy in the previous episode, Gus seems a little off kilter, a little bit off his game. And as I pointed out in my breakdown of episode 1, I think Mike's advice to Kaylee applies to all the characters.
You see, you build it too high, your marble's gonna run off the track.
Gus's plan to kill Lalo was so big and so ambitious that it went a bit off the rails. His anxiety is best evidenced in this scene. When Tyrus reports that as far as the cartel is concerned, Lalo's dead, we see Gus's thumb twitch, and he isn't convinced. And sensing this, Mike offers this rational assessment.
Salamanca, we're coming straight for you. He'd be here already.
If Nacho gets caught, Gus gets caught.
He's gonna get caught.
And this reality hits Gus like a marble flying off a track, and he is so unnerved that he knocks a glass off the table. Cool, calm, and usually collected Gus made a mistake. Mike argues that getting Nacho before Lalo does is their only play because as far as he's concerned, there is nothing else at this point to be done. All along, Mike has been advocating for Nacho. And as we saw in the earlier clip, Mike went along with Gus's plan, though, to set him up to frame him by putting that envelope in the safe. So why did he go along with it? And why is he now again arguing that they should save Nacho?
When you're in, you're in.
Mike draws a clear distinction between those in the game and those out of the game. And even for those in the game, he has a soft spot for those who want to do good, but have made some terrible choices, especially when it comes to young men in particular, like Nacho and Jesse. And I think this probably comes from what happened with his own son, Matty, a good cop who, at Mike's encouragement, made a bad choice that ultimately led to his murder.
I got Matty to take the money. And they killed him 2 days later.
And though Mike has empathy for Nacho, Nacho is in the game, and he got into the game of his own accord.
I warned you, when you started going after Hector Salamanca, there'd be others to worry about. You made a choice. You got in with both eyes open.
My father didn't.
But Mike draws the line at Manuel. That's why he kept his ID and why he confronts Gus when Gus comes up with an alternative plan to going and getting Nacho from the desert in Mexico.
El padre de Vargas. Tráelo aquí.
No. You're not doing that.
Mike taking a stand for Manuel is perhaps to make up for the stand he didn't take for his own son. And while Mike clearly felt conflicted about killing Werner Ziegler, Werner was in the game. The moment that he signed on to do the construction project for Gus, he was in. He may not have known what the space he was building was going to be used for, but he was aware that it was a top secret project. It was pretty sus, right? And why else if not for illicit reasons? So another reason Mike probably feels so strongly about drawing a line between those in and those out is his own desire to protect his family, right? So like if the cartel or Gus or whoever can go after Nacho's innocent father, what's to stop them from going after Kaylee and Stacy? So Mike lacks the ferocity that Gus and the cartel have. He's not gonna go along with threatening anyone's infant daughter in the desert. Nacho, like Mike, wants to protect innocence.
There were some regular people at that house, some old folks. What about them?
Got no information on that.
Nacho specify old folks, and that's perhaps because of his own feelings about his father, right? He has this very, very strong desire to protect his dad. And just as Mike has a desire to protect the young men in his life, this is an ethos to protect innocence. And we also see this in Breaking Bad with Jesse, who has a very strong desire to protect children like Spooge's kid, Brock, Tomas, and Drew Sharp. He also protects his own little brother, Jake, when the housekeeper finds Jake's joint and their parents immediately blame Jesse and he doesn't turn him in. So as Nacho, one of the original bad guys, is starting to break good, our original moral center of the show, Kim, is starting to break bad. In the first scene with Kim and Jimmy, we see them brainstorming ideas about how to raise Cliff Maines' suspicions about Howard.
So it's got to be someone with a history with Howard.
Yeah.
But Cliff has to want to take the meeting, but not the case.
Right.
It's got to be good, but not too good.
Exactly. There's a sweet spot, like a magnet. We pull Cliff in and then repel him.
And Kim comes up with a plan to use the Kettlemans. As unpleasant as the Kettlemans are, and with all the grief that they've caused Jimmy in the past, he did try to protect them when he thought they were in danger. That ethos that Mike and Nacho and Jesse share about wanting to protect the innocents is one that Jimmy also shares, or at least he used to share to some extent. As we saw in season 1, episode 3, trying to protect the Kettlemans from Nacho.
Kettlemans, you're in danger! You're in danger!
The Kettlemans are crooks and are far from innocent, no doubt about it, but they aren't violent criminals. They're not in the game. Jimmy goes to see them in what is the comic relief of an otherwise very intense episode. I would be remiss to not point out the obvious Easter eggs. I'm sure everyone noticed them as well. That's the inflatable Statue of Liberty that will later sit atop Saul's office. And perhaps this is where he gets the inspiration for the waiting room music. Jimmy tells the Kettlemans that they were misrepresented by Howard, but before he will tell them more, he makes them sign affidavits.
Before the last time I gave you 2 advice, you went straight to the competition with it. So I just need some assurances that all my hard work isn't going to end up in the hands of Clifford Maine or some other ass, some pretentious Spanish pay white shoe law firm.
So in this scene, the possibility of exoneration for Craig is the carrot. Jimmy also dangles Cliff Maines' name, hoping that they'd go see him, and that's exactly what they do.
Did you have any evidence to support this?
Well, it will all come out in discovery. All his drug purchases, his drug associates, all of that gets on the record during discovery. Yeah.
In this episode, there is real proof and fabricated proof. We, of course, know that there is no authentic evidence that Howard Hamlin is a cocaine addict. We also know that the body in the crime scenes from Lalo's house is Mateo's, and that Lalo is still alive. So let's take a look at the real proof in this episode. Nacho is trapped in his room waiting to be extracted. The cartel is after him. Don Eladio has put a price on his head. And all of his hope is resting on the man who has threatened to kill his father if he didn't do his bidding. The air conditioning in Nacho's room goes out, and it is hard to miss the metaphor. The heat is turning up on Nacho. When Bolsa pulls out the bank statement that Mike planted in the safe, it is literally on fire. Back in the motel, Nacho paces around the room trying to decide what to do. He looks at his phone and hesitates. His only contact is Tyrus, and he's already suspicious that he's being set up. It's not likely that the cartel would just sit and watch him, so who else but Gus? Nacho kicks out the busted air conditioning and escapes through the back and then confronts the watcher across the street. And to get the proof that he needs, Nacho calls Tyrus and says he's going to cross the border by himself.
Yeah.
Something's not right, man.
Someone on you.
No, I don't know. I got a bad feeling. I need to get out of here.
And there's the proof that he needs. Then we get this super intense scene with Marco, Lionel, and other members of the Salamanca crew when they show up at the motel. When one of them starts shooting at Nacho, Marco yells,
Vivo.
reminding them that they need to take Nacho alive. They'll never learn who really hired him if he's dead, and they need proof that Gus sent the assassins. My favorite shot of the whole episode is in this scene when the camera moves through the windshield. So cool. I heard them talk about it on the Insider podcast and later saw this behind the scenes photo of how they accomplished this shot. Anyway, it is unclear whether the twins are aware at this point that Lalo is alive. Hector knows when Lalo calls him at the end of the previous episode, and Gus figures it out when he goes to see Hector and Bolsa in this episode. After Gus gives his phony condolences to Don Hector, Hector, with great effort, extends a hand and makes eye contact with Gus as he raises his eyebrows. Fans of Breaking Bad will recall that Hector never makes eye contact with Gus and only does so when he has the upper hand in this situation and in the final scene that they share together on Breaking Bad. So this moment is very significant, and without words, Hector is saying, F you, I gotcha. So before I move on to the final scene with Jimmy, Kim, and the Kettlemans, let's recap the proof that we have so far. In terms of real proof, Nacho is seeking proof that he is being set up by Gus. Gus receives proof in the form of a handshake and eye contact that Lalo is actually alive. The cartel is seeking proof that it was Gus who hired Nacho, but they're not successful in this episode in catching Nacho. We'll see what happens next episode. Now, in terms of fabricated proof or phony proof, the bank statements that Gus has Mike plant shows that Nacho was hired by someone else to kill Lalo. In the previous episode and in this episode, Jimmy and Kim are trying to raise Cliff Main's suspicions or doubt about Howard Hamlin, that he might be a cocaine addict, because they're trying to get the Sandpiper case settled. And the other piece of fake evidence is the crime scene photo or crime scene photos of Mateo, Lalo's body double. And this is fake proof that Lalo perished in the fire. So the Kettlemans called Jimmy and, clearly upset after all the real lawyers that they went to refused to take their Howard is a cokehead case, figure out that they've been used. He agrees to meet with them in the morning and gets up to get some money out of his bagman stash. Seeing this, Kim says,
"You're going to use the stick, right?"
He puts some cash in his jacket pocket and the camera lingers on Kim's face. She purses her lips, a clear indication of her disapproval and that she is physically restraining herself from saying what's really on her mind. Jimmy gets into bed next to her and she says,
"I think maybe I'll come too."
Kim has already decided that they don't deserve the carrot. That's her carrot, after all. When they arrive at Sweet Liberty the next morning, Kim notices an elderly Native woman coming down the ramp and her eyebrows furrow. Her spidey and justice senses are ablaze. As Betsy yells at Jimmy for scamming them and using them in a plot to assassinate Howard Hamlin's character, Kim walks around the trailer calmly sizing up the place, sort of drinking it all in. In this scene, Betsy and Kim are the wolves, or rather, Kim is the wolf and Betsy is the fox. So she's sly and wily, a little vixen, but we'll see Kim's really got the upper hand here. And as Betsy is whining about what victims they are and how unfair it is and their lives have been ruined and it's all Jimmy's fault, Kim sits waiting patiently in the foreground for her moment to bring out the stick. Kim is the new Colossus, and with Lady Liberty as an avatar on the wall behind her, I am reminded of Emma Lazarus's poem, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." The very people that Kim wants to defend and protect are being exploited by the Kettlemans. It is too much for her to stand. So she calls a friend in criminal investigations, and like Lady Liberty holding her torch high, Kim hoists that tax fraud stick. She dominates the scene. And just as Craig always stands sort of sheepishly behind Betsy and lets her do all the talking, Jimmy hangs his head silently, clearly uncomfortable with the direction that this is going. Betsy pleads with Kim and hangs up the call with promises to do anything.
Please. We'll do anything.
The camera looking up at her makes her appear larger, and with her face pointed to the sun, Kim stands victorious like a colossus. Her patterned blouse with reds, purples, and golds, a visual representation of her darkness, and that she is moving further and further away from the blues and cooler colors of law and order. She is now operating by her own sense of justice. And like Robin Hood, who has no qualms robbing the rich to help the poor, Kim is willing to break the rules a little bit.
Wolves and sheep.
And as they drive away, we see that they're being followed. Now, there are several possibilities for who is tailing them. The first possibility is Mike. Now that Gus knows that Lalo is alive, they could be watching Jimmy to see if Lalo tries to make contact, but that is not Mike's plate. The second possibility is that it could be someone working for Lalo. I didn't point this out in my breakdown of Wine and Roses, though I did talk about this scene, but in a different context. But I think it's worth noting here. So we see in Wine and Roses that Kim throws out Jimmy's bullet-ridden coffee cup in the trash outside of their apartment. And when she does this, they're leaving behind proof that Jimmy lied to Lalo about what actually happened in the desert, right? It wasn't some kids shooting up the car after, Jimmy left the scene. And while the cartel is out seeking proof that it was Gus who hired the assassins, Lalo could be on another quest to find proof that Gus is behind the assassination attempt, and that proof could be Jimmy, right? That's the only other guy he's got, at least as far as we know. So it could be Lalo or someone working for Lalo. I think Lalo's still in Mexico. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I believe there could be one other character collecting evidence. And following what happened in season 5 with the bowling balls and the prostitutes, Howard could have hired a private investigator to follow Jimmy. I don't have anything really concrete to support this, but let's take a quick look back at this scene from Wine and Roses. As Jimmy is inside planting cocaine in Howard's locker, Kim is watching Howard and Cliff on the course. Howard gets a phone call, and then he quickly jumps back into the golf cart and they speed off. We have no idea who Howard is talking to, and it could be, any number of things has come up that he needs to leave. But what if it was a PI? What if it's a PI that calls him to let him know that Jimmy's been spotted at the country club? What if Howard is collecting evidence to build a case against Jimmy? It has been teased in some of the trailers that there is a case being built against Jimmy, so I don't think it's too far-fetched a theory. And when we look at the quest for proof in this episode, we can see that for every real piece of proof, there is fabricated proof. So for every blank, there's and a blank. So for the fabricated proof that Howard is a cocaine addict, there may be real proof being collected on how Jimmy is framing Howard. So who do you think is following them? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please share them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Well, that does it for my breakdown of episode 2, Carrot and Stick. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate the support. So please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe, and turn on those notifications if you want more Better Call Saul content, because there's plenty more coming down the pike.